I feel like a Tuesday night. Okay, so we began the third chapter of Hilchas Deos, and the Rambam um, started off by discussing his belief about aesthetics, about enjoying yourself, right? And abstaining from things is not the Jewish way. And we're here on earth to take advantage of what the earth has for us. And in specific, he discussed wine that a nazir has to drink. That a nazir is not allowed to drink. And he's called a chote. And we discussed the machlokas between the Rambam and the Ramban regarding the nazir, why he brings a chata. So we discussed a little bit about that yesterday. And then he segued into halacha beis. We're in chapter 3, halacha beis of Hilchas Deos, where he said that everything we do should have a common goal and justification, that it's all for the purpose of serving the Lord, right? And that's what the Rambam said. He said, every single thing you do, from when you get up, when you go get dressed, and you go out to work, and everything should be done not just to make money, but as they say, there's a means to an end, right? Meaning that you have to take the money, and you have to live, and you have to be healthy, right? And you have to support yourself so that you could live to see another day to serve God, right? That's the philosophy of the Rambam, is that is that you have to continue to exist. That was the very long halacha beis, right? And he gave examples, and then he segued into taking care of yourself and your body, and eating the correct foods, and not getting fat, and stuff like that. So that's what the Rambam says, and we'll start off with halacha gimel. Here we go, hamanhig. Rambam starts off by saying something very interesting. He says, Hamanig atzmo al piha refuah. So if you live your life and you have a good diet, and you eat healthy, right? And you take care of yourself, im sam alibo shia kol gufa ve'evar of shleimim bilvad, if you set up your system whereby you personally, right, are healthy and everything is in order, but v'shielo banim osid malachto va'amelim mitzachar ein ze derech tova. If you give all the work to have your children do for you, and you just like work out all day, right, and just take care of yourself and not work, right, and have your sons do your dirty work for you, right, that's not a good thing to do, right? Don't employ your children. I think that's one of the many lessons from this Rambam. Elayasim alibo shia gufo shalom v'chaza kedei shia nafsha yishar ladasas Hashem. Rather, you do the work yourself, and you be physical, right? So that, again, a healthy body equals a healthy mind. Now, keep in mind, the Rambam, before he was a rabbi, he was a doctor. So every single thing he says, all of his theorems are all based on this healthy body, equals healthy mind, and therefore I could serve God better. That's really the theme of almost every Rambam we're going to see in this book, right? And he keeps on repeating it over and over and over again. Because it's impossible if you're not physically fit, and if you're sick, then you can't really function, he says. You can't think and hypothesize and theorize and write, scientific papers if you're sick and up, in bed, or if you have backaches all the time. It's physically going to hamper your existence. Okay, so that's what the Rambam says. V'yasim alibo shielo ben. The Rambam does say it would be nice to have a child. Now he says a son. He also probably means a daughter, a child, but we won't get into that now, whether daughters or sons are better. We all know the answer to that. But he says you should set up so that your son, right, ulai chacham v'gadol b'Yisrael. I don't know why he puts that in. This is like really not the place for it, but he says that this son, that you shouldn't have him doing all your work for you. It would be nice if he becomes something one day. Okay. Nimtza hamahalach b'derech zu kol yamav oved es Hashem tamid. This is the equation, the Rambam says, to being what we call an oved Hashem. Okay, and it all starts with really eating healthy and working out. Afilu, and the Rambam says something very, I don't know, a little controversial. He says, Afilu b'shasha nosa v'noten, v'afilu b'shasha boel. You should always have God on your mind, whether you're in business or whether you're in the bedroom. Right? I heard once a line that said that it's better to talk to a woman and have God on your mind than talk to God and have a woman on your mind. Should I repeat that, or you got that? Okay. Again, it's better to talk to a woman and have God on your mind than talk to God and have a woman on your mind. Okay.
But that was great.
That's why you need a mechitza in shul. Okay. Anyways, but here the Rambam says flat out, he says, even in the bedroom, you should be having God on your mind, during your, whatever you do in the bedroom. Mipnei shemachshavto bakol kedei sheyimtza tzrachav ad sheyagufo shalom avodas Hashem. Because it's your machshava, right, should be complete. Bakol kedei sheyimtza tzrachav, right, that all your needs should be, right, fulfilled. Ad sheyagufo shalom avodas Hashem. Because you need to do all these functions. You need bodily functions. You need to work. Everything is a means to an end. Right? He keeps on repeating over and over and over. What's the means to an end? To serve God. And in order to serve God, you need to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You need a whole laundry list of items. And that includes eating and sleeping and procreating and making money and doing everything so that at the end of the day, you are serving God. Even your sleep could become holy. How is that possible, right? How are you going to say, how could I make my sleep holy? Well, the answer is, right, Im yashan ladas kadesha tanuach daitu olav. If you need to sleep in order to refresh yourself and recharge your batteries, then that's exactly what you have to do. V'yanuach gufo kadesha lo yechla, in order so that you don't become sick. You can't say, well, I'm going to pull an all-nighter and learn all night because I'm 14 pages behind in the Daf Yomi. So I'm going to stay up all night, and then the whole next day I'm going to be sick because I need sleep. That's counterproductive, right? That's not how to operate. You have to get just enough sleep. So now you can't sleep too much, but you can't sleep too little also, right? Very, very logical coming from a doctor 1,000 years ago, right? God relishes your sleep, right? Why? Because it's all done l'shem shamayim, and that's the key over here. The key take over here is everything has to be done l'shem shamayim. You could take something that is what we call chulin, right? Chol, something that is profane, right? And make it holy. And that's what Kedoshim Tiyu is all about, right? Taking something that appears to be nothing, but Jews, but us can take it, something very, very trivial, and magnify it to become holy. And his example over here is sleep, right? That is at the end of the second parak in Pirkei Avos, if you remember. Every single thing you do from the minute you get up and you go to the bathroom and you get dressed and you put on your shoes and you make sure that you put your right foot on and you don't tie it and you put your left foot on and you tie the left, and you keep all the halachas. You could take something that's very, very small and make it very, very big. That's what living a Jewish life is all about. V'husha amar Shlomo b'chachmaso, and that's what Shlomo says in Proverbs, b'chol d'rachecha da'ehu, a famous pasuk that appears above an Aron Kodesh somewhere. V'hu yiyasher achosecha. Right? That says you should know God in all your ways, and he will strengthen your paths. What does it mean, all your ways? meaning every single thing you do, from working out in the gym to skiing to football to physical activities to going here to picking up carpool to fixing your car, every single action that you do, which number in the hundreds, should all be for this pure sake of heaven, so that it leads to you serving God better, right? That's the conclusion. I need to do this because I have to get here, because that'll ultimately lead to being an Oved Hashem. Very, very, very deep. It's simple, but yet on the other hand, it's very deep. And that is how the third chapter ends. And the fourth chapter is really a continuation of the third chapter. And he says, Hoel v'heos haguf bari v'shalom midarkei Hashemhu, right? Since, as I just said many, many times, the Rambam says that keeping a healthy body and a healthy mind is what we call the derech Hashem, right? Because it's impossible to understand, it's impossible to learn Torah, it's impossible to daven, it's impossible to think of God if you're right, if you're holed up in bed and you're sick. So therefore, you got to do your best to maintain your health. You have to keep to a healthy diet. Okay, you can't eat whatever you just desire, right, and want to eat. And you have to eat things that make you healthy and give you strength, right? The word chalami means strength. The Eluhen. So here's some practical advice the Rambam gives you about curbing your appetite. All right, you taking notes? The Eluhen. La'olam lo yochol adam ela kishu rayev. So this is something that I'd say 90% of the people do not follow, is you only eat when you're actually hungry, not when you're mildly hungry. This kind of, right, this kind of takes away the whole snack, right? Because most people don't eat, snacks are when you're, semi-hungry only, not when you're totally hungry. You're not going to snack usually. So there goes Frito-Lays. And you only drink when you absolutely have to, when you are thirsty, right? And this is a biggie that, if you remember the Gemara a few times, mainly in Brachos, is very, very against holding in when you have to go to the bathroom, right? There's a story about a Amora. He was in Shir, and he didn't want to get up and disturb the class, and he had a very, very bad ending. Okay, bad things happen. Whether you have to go number one or number two, you jump up, you go to the bathroom, and don't be embarrassed, right? Even if it means disturbing class or upsetting the teacher. Okay, so that is appetite, rules on appetite. Okay, now we're going to continue in halacha beis. We have time? Yeah, we have a minute. So here is a famous Rambam. The Rambam says, when you're eating, you never eat until you're completely satiated. You have to eat only until you're 75% full. Now, we don't have like a fullometer on us that you could gauge when you hit that, when the needle hits 75%, but it basically means that don't stuff yourself, don't overeat, and always leave over a little bit, not just for dessert, but just always leave over a little bit. So you could never, ever say that I'm stuffed and I can't eat anymore, right? The Gemara a lot of times calls it an achila gasa, right? With halachic ramifications of what an achila gasa is. Right? And we're all accustomed to, when we eat a meal, we have to drink like right away, right? After we eat like a few bites, we take a drink, then we eat, then we drink. That's not really the way it was supposed to be. we're supposed to eat and have very, very little water. And he says it shouldn't even be water. You should take the water and dilute it with wine. You shouldn't drinking water. You should be drinking wine. Again, this is 1,000 years ago. You have to keep in mind, right? Before prohibition and alcohol and Surgeon General, and what we know today about alcohol. So keep that in mind. And when the digestion starts, then you should drink a little bit more. But basically, the Rambam makes it sound like what we do today is all wrong because we have, the drink, the Coke and the Sprite and the juice, right? All part of the meal. Really, you should be eating. You should be focused mainly on the food, and then worry about the drink after. Right? We're just not used to that. And don't eat until you check yourself. That's a nice way of saying make sure you don't have to go to the bathroom. Because maybe you'll have to go out to the bathroom. Now, again, it's not like today where our bathrooms are indoors and it's 15 feet from the table. Back then, you had to take a hike in order to go out to the bathroom. Right? And the Rambam also says that you shouldn't eat, right, until you exercise, until you walk, okay? So that you build up heat in your body, meaning you don't wake up, fall out of bed, and go into breakfast right away. That's not healthy at all. You have to have physical activities before you start eating breakfast. Oyasa malachto, he says, work. Again, the Rambam, we said it a million times, very, very into work. Or go on the Stairmaster, go do some crunches. I know there's a yeshiva somewhere that does crunches right after davening before morning seder. I've seen pictures. Klalo shel davar, here's the general rule. Ya'ane gufo v'yiga kol yom baboker. You have to, like the word ya'ana, like from Inoi, like on Yom Kippur, you have to afflict yourself, not literally, but you have to be active. You have to be physical. Your body has to be physical and work out every morning so that your body becomes warm, v'yishkod ma'at, and it calms down. Don't jump into food right away. Get active, have your body almost like crave the food, and then eat. If you take a shower after your workout, harei tov, that is excellent idea. Then go out and enjoy your raisin bran. And on that note, we will sign off. Any questions?